Hi everybody, I hope you are all well. It is dull, cold and wet today here in the south of England, but it is spring. Spring is here, so temperatures are moving their way up, which is very nice. At the moment, the past few days have been absolutely lovely, so the horrible weather that we're having today is, you know, bound to come around after a few days of absolute glorious weather. So I have been away for 3 weeks. I know. I did hope that I would be back sooner, but you know, life gets in the way, work gets in the way, and I actually hit kind of a brick wall with reading, that I just didn't have the energy at first to pick up my books that I was reading, and then I didn't have the want because I was so tired. So I had this weird you know, because work was just so frantic and everything. But I have only got three more working days, and then I'm off for a week and a half. I am off from the 30th of March, and because of the Easter bank holiday, I am off until the 11th of April. So I am so ready for that break, and it's going to be amazing. So as soon as Wednesday evening hits, you know, what afternoon, you know, evening hits, and I turn off my laptop, I can just go, and I can read as much as I want and do as much as I want, and that's going to be amazing. But one thing that has kept me kind of sane during the past few weeks is something that I never thought would, and it's Star Wars. I know. Because I have always, if you've been on my channel for a while, I have mentioned before that Star Wars, I love sci-fi, but Star Wars, I just couldn't. It was like, no, I don't get it. I don't understand why this is popular. I just couldn't go there. And because I felt, I loved The Last of Us. I got to know like Pedro Pascal through it, and so I started looking at other things that he had been in, because I think he's a good actor. He's great, and I stumbled across The Mandalorian. So I watched series 1 and 2 of Mandalorian, and then went, I don't understand half of this, but I just kind of, because I love Grogu and I love Mando, or Din is his real name. And so I started going through, because I've got Disney Plus, I started going through all of the Star Wars films. I've rewatched series 1 and 2 of Mandalorian. I've watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I've watched Rogue One, and I've watched Solo. So I feel like I've done the bulk of the Star Wars stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, I am a Star Wars fan now. That's very weird to say that when so many years I have gone, no. And I think what it goes back to is the Phantom Menace, because when my twin cousins were quite young, they stayed here with my mum and dad, and obviously I was living at home at the time, and we went to Blockbuster Video. That tells you how old this this was, and we got, I think it was one of the first DVDs kind of that was out there to rent, was the Phantom Menace. And I started watching it with them, and I was like, oh my god, this film is terrible. And I think that's what put that blocker in my head of, no, I don't get this, no. So I embraced it, I liked it, and it's what has sustained me through these 3 weeks of madness. So where I couldn't read, oh god, I just didn't have the energy. So yeah, I'm a Star Wars fan now. And I bawled my eyes out over Star Wars, and I'm like, how the hell did that happen? I never have thought a few weeks ago that you'd be telling me that I'd be crying over Star Wars, but there we go, it happened. But yeah, that's what I've been up to for the past few weeks. So just, as I said, just 3 more working days, and then I am totally free to do whatever the heck I want, and I'm having a mini break to Oxford, staying at a luxury hotel, which is very, very new for me, because I'm very much a Premier Inn kind of gal, okay? As long as I've got my basics, I'm good. So actually staying at a luxury hotel in the centre of Oxford, it's like, that's going to be interesting. So I'm very excited to have a mini break as well away. I think it's going to be really good. But anyway, let's stop talking about my life. 5-minute ramble going on about Star Wars and such. Let's talk about the book that's taken me 3 weeks to read, which is Queen of Our Times, The Life of Elizabeth II by Robert Hardman. This is like my favourite picture of Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth II. She's absolutely beautiful. Even in her older age, absolutely beautiful woman. But this picture, I adore it so much. It's a fave of mine. So, as I said, because I was going through a lot of stuff with work and, you know, I was just so exhausted and, you know, in my personal time, I just didn't have the want to read and stuff. That's why I was like, I'm not going to force myself to read this because it is a book that I want to read. It's just literally, it's external factors that are preventing me from focusing. So I was like, if it takes weeks, it takes weeks. It's what I've got to do because I want to give my time when I'm not distracted to this book. Now, I know the monarchy is something that is quite, you know, polarizing for some people. There are people who love the monarchy. There are people who hate the monarchy. I like the monarchy. I've loved monarchy history, British monarchy history, since I was a child. I do love history of other monarchs around the world, just to clarify, but I'm just saying, you know, British monarchy history, because that is the history that I know the most of. So that's why I was just emphasizing that. But yeah, I like the royal family. I especially love what like William and Catherine, or should I say the Prince and Princess of Wales now, their official titles. What they're doing. I'm so excited to see what they go on to do. I think I'm very excited looking, you know, for the coronation of King Charles in May. I can't believe that's coming around so quickly. You know, I've never been like, you know, you can have some people who are very pro monarchy, like, you know, collecting all the memorabilia, they're there at every single event, that kind of thing. I'm not that kind of, you know, monarchist. I am someone who, you know, I completely, utterly respect them. I like them. I think they're good people. Obviously, there are bad eggs in there. I'm not trying to say like Prince Andrew is a good person, because no. But the majority of the family, you know, very happy with. So yeah, you know, I like the royal family. I'm saying it there now. So if you have issue with them, you know, that's your own personal preference, and this is my own personal preference. Please don't attack me for saying that I like the royal family. Okay, so I really loved Queen Elizabeth II, and when she passed, I cried. It really was a shocking moment, because she was always there. She was always there. She was born, I think it was 3 months after television was invented. That is insane. She met 14 presidents of the United States. That is insane. It's just, when you look at all of the stats of people that she met and world events that happened throughout her lifetime, it's like she was around for all of that. That is insane. So she was a stabilized foundation for the UK, and then to lose her, that was really shaking. That felt like, wow, this is so strange. And the weirdest thing for me, it was, I remember the first time hearing the national anthem referring to king instead of queen. It's a tiny thing, it's one word, but that one word is monumental. It's just, it was so powerful to hear that for the first time. And, you know, getting used to titles changing because of passing of the monarch and everything. It was a very strange time when she passed. Her funeral was absolutely beautiful. Oh my gosh, I watched all of it. I didn't care. It was like 4 hours long. I was sitting for 4 hours in front of my TV. I was there for it. It was an extraordinary day that day. Now, Robert Hardman's book, just so you're aware, this came out in February last year, and she died in I can't remember if it was September or October. That is very bad of me not to remember. I have a feeling it was September. I don't know why, September or October. The 2 days, 2 months are like flashing one after the other in my head. So around that time, we lost her. So this is the original edition of this book, because following her death, the book was reissued with an additional chapter to go over her funeral. And at the bottom, you could tell the difference, because at the bottom, I believe it includes her dates, and it's called something like the celebratory edition. So that's how you can tell. So just by looking at the cover, you'll be able to see exactly what the difference is. So I have the original one, which is still, you know, it ends, you know, pretty positively and talks about, you know, how she's still around and the stability of the nation and such. So reading it now after she has passed, that ending, it feels like, ooh, that's, oh gosh, that feels very strange to refer to her as still being around and everything. But you know, it's natural that when a passing happens, the first time you have those kind of references and such, that it's going to jar you, it's going to affect you in some way. So yeah, that's how I felt about that. So Robert Hardman has written books about the Queen before. He'd written, I think, 3 or 4 books about her. So this was the one that, you know, encompassed her whole life. As I said, but the full life, because of the newer edition with covering her death and funeral and such. But yeah, I was really, really happy that this book was completely unbiased. You do have books that are written about the monarchy who you can tell the author is biased. They will have certain thoughts, certain feelings that they want to express, but also sometimes it really, really bugs me when they say, well, the monarch felt, you know, the person, the subject, or whoever it is, felt this way about this and felt that way about that. And it's like, well, where's your evidence of that? You're not actually quoting them and such, so where are you getting that information from? Especially when it comes to like the Queen, because even though she was open to talk about various things, there were a lot of things that she kept to herself and such. She knew where the boundary lay, so she knew that she couldn't really express thoughts about certain things. So if you then have a biographer a historian who is then saying, well, she felt this way and felt that way, I'm going to go, really? And so Robert didn't have any of that at all. So I'm like, yes, finally, we get someone who is looking at her as not just as a member of the monarchy, but as a person as well, and looking at the facts of various situations and what happened. Now, he does interview various members of court, and when they have an opinion on something, they are completely quoted. He tells you who they are. He does talk about other biographers who he also spoke with, and quotes them, and also quotes some of their work as well. So he does look at different sources to see, okay, what's the interpretation here? What is the interpretation there? But he stays completely grounded to the point that this is a person, this is what was presented to her in this situation, and this is what she did. So he lays it completely out for you. I love the fact also that he didn't give in to gossip. So like obviously the years for like Charles and Diana and all that kind of stuff, he talks about how saying there was interest in press about their marriage, but he doesn't like quote like headlines or that kind of thing. He just goes, look, there was a situation that was going on at the same time as the Queen was dealing with this political issue, and because he's following the Queen, he makes sure that she is the number one focus. So he never loses track of Elizabeth as a person. He never loses track of Elizabeth as a monarch. He doesn't show, he's not biased, so he doesn't throw in his own opinions about various things going on and such. And I just loved his pace of things, because to cram in nearly 100 years of history, and when I say nearly 100 years, it's because obviously there's the build up to her birth at the beginning of the book, and then her life, so nearly 100 years of history into 600 pages. That is a lot. That is a lot. So it can kind of, in a way, feel like, oh, I wish he wrote further about this. I wish he wasn't rushing through. But if you want to be able to have the full history of this woman and the amazing things that she did, you are just going to have to deal with that. If you want to, read a book that only focuses on a certain period of her life, find a book that only focuses on that period, because he's going the whole hog in this book, okay? I really loved also that he never lost focus on her grace, her dignity, her wanting to make her dad proud, her wanting to do her duty to her country, and also her sense of humour. She was a witty woman, was the Queen. She was very, very well known for it. And I really liked the fact that it began with Barack Obama's visit to the UK and meeting the Queen and such, and him talking about what an honour it was, and also how incredible this woman was. It was really, really wonderful to get an outside perspective view on Queen Elizabeth as our introduction, and go, if this is what the outside world felt about this woman, imagine what the people who she reigned over felt about her. Also, loved the fact that the Commonwealth was always, featured as well. He always talked about visits that when she went to the Commonwealth, and made it very clear that it wasn't just the UK who were affected by things that went on, obviously politically around the world, and also were also affected by the Queen's death, by various things that she did during her time. She served so many people. It is crazy to take that in, and she should be recognised for her duty, her discipline, her love for her country and her people around the Commonwealth. She was a great, great woman. And like I said, she was like a grandmother to all of us. And when we lost her, it was devastating, or at least I felt devastated by it. I mean, I was really sad when Philip died. When the Queen died, I was in floods. I was just... It's very interesting, because I have friends who live in America when the Queen, she started cancelling various appointments and everything, and pass things on to her children and such to take, you know, charge of various events and such. I did get messages from them going, is the Queen alright? Is she really ill or whatever? And I said, look, like, I remember on one of them, Charles and Camilla went off to, I think it was, I think it might have been like Africa. It was around Remembrance Day, because I remember that they were overseas. Remembrance Day, that was it, because she wasn't able to attend because she'd had a bad back or something. Yeah, so they had flown overseas, and various other, you know, members of the royal family were dotted about here and everywhere. And I said, look, if the other members, senior members of the royal family are going overseas and all that lot, then it's, yeah, she's not well, but it's, you know, not a really serious situation. The moment that they start moving towards where the Queen is, that is the moment that everything is going to change. And as soon as earlier that day, when it was said that the Queen was not well and all the royals were just rushing to get to Balmoral, it was like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. And I was working, I remember, and I was so distracted in the afternoon. And it was, yeah, I think it was about 3 o'clock or something. I turned off my laptop and everything, and I was like, okay, I'm finishing work for the day. And I think within a couple of hours, we got the news that she had passed, and I was devastated. It was a hard day that day. I remember. Yeah, it was a tough day. But anyway, back to this book. Sorry, I went off on a tangent then. Yeah, I actually, I think I might do a bit of a reading from this book. So, okay, so this is a bit that 1992 was a terrible, terrible year for the Queen. She went through a lot of stuff that was going on. Two of her children were caught up in divorce situations, which was all over the press. And then there was the fire at Windsor Castle. So it was just like, it was one thing after another in 1992. It was very, very hard. And this section of the book has one of the best titles. It's called Fire and Flowers. I just thought, oh, that is amazing title. But here is Robert Hardman talking about it's after the fire has happened, and the Queen obviously was very devastated by it, and she was going to a dinner at the Guildhall, and she would make a speech which would be forever remembered. So here we go. A mere 4 days after the fire, the Queen arrived at the Guildhall in the City of London for that long-planned civic luncheon, arranged back in happier times to mark her 40 years on the throne. With her throat still hoarse from both her cold and the smoke, she had contemplated asking Prince Philip to read the speech. Her private secretary, Sir Robert Fellows, was adamant that it should come from her. The trade-off was that she would speak before lunch, not after. As she began, it was clear why these words could only come from the sovereign herself. 1992 is not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure. In the words of one of my more sympathetic correspondents, it's turned out to be an annus horribilis, she began. Though this would be the phrase remembered forevermore, the point of the speech was not to dwell on her own misfortune, or one's bum year, as the Sun put it, but to ask for a little more understanding from the monarchy's critics, particularly those in the media. I sometimes wonder how future generations will judge the events of this tumultuous year. I dare say that history will take a slightly more moderate view than that of some contemporary commentators, she went on. Criticism, she acknowledged, was useful. No institution, city or monarchy, whatever, should expect to be free from scrutiny of those who give in their loyalty and support, not to mention those who don't. And then came the crunch. It was a very human plea, rendered all the more poignant by the frailty of her voice. But we are all part of the same fabric of our national society, and that scrutiny by one part of another can be just as effective if it is made with a touch of gentleness, good humour and understanding. Even while Windsor Castle was still smouldering, the attacks on the monarchy had not subsided. Rather, they'd taken a new direction after a well-intentioned Secretary of State for National Heritage, Peter Brooke, had confidently assured the TV cameras that the Commons that the government stood ready to fund the repair work. Opposition to the idea was by no means confined to the Republican left. Even the conservative royalist Daily Mail carried a front page editorial conflating the issue of the Queen's tax exemption and the constant diet of scandals and the fire into a challenge for the Queen herself. The impression given is of an out-of-touch government pandering to a wealthy and out-of-favour royal family. Right now, that's like a red rag to the British bulldog. It echoed the growing calls across the commentatorists at the opposition benches from the monarchy to listen and to offer up some sort of financial sacrifice. While the critics were unaware of, got a bit tongue-tied there, was that Lord Ardley, Michael Peet and their team had been working on this very issue for the best part of a year. They did so in spite of the continued misgivings of the Prime Minister, John Mayer. I did not require the Queen to pay tax, he said firmly many years later. Even so, the Queen had been determined to launch their boil and was planning to announce a voluntary end of her tax exemption in early 1993. So yeah, that was just, you know, to give you an example of the respect, because with that particular speech, I mean, a lot of people talk about, you know, the Anna Terribilis and how her voice breaks, and, you know, was it emotion, was it her cold, was it a combination? But he goes, right, okay, that happened, but there's this part of the speech as well that people just don't notice, don't think about, don't understand, or don't bother to listen to. I love the fact that he did that. And the love and respect that he had for this woman is very clear throughout every single page. And I am so glad that I paced myself and I read it the way that I read it through these few weeks of craziness, and actually to have a few weeks of craziness going on when reading about this woman who endured so much and dealt with it in such a stoic, graceful, beautiful manner, dignified manner. I'm like, it kind of makes me feel like the crazy stuff that's happened over the past few weeks with my work and stuff in life and everything, that it's nothing compared to the worst things that could possibly happen. So if she can deal with that, I can deal with this. So yeah, even though it was very weird to say, it kind of was the perfect book for me to read while crazy stuff was going on over the last few weeks. So yeah, thank you, Robert Hardman, for writing this book, and to the late great Queen Elizabeth. I loved her so much. I thought she was amazing, and I'm going to get emotional in a minute, so I'm going to end there. Okay, so those are my thoughts on Queen of Our Times by Robert Hardman. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely to you on each side. And I'll be back with my thoughts on my next read, which is The Bedroom Secrets of the Master Chef by Irvine Welsh. What a contrasting book, but I think this is going to be the perfect book that I need to read on the build up to my trip to Oxford, and I'm sure I'm going to get this done in a week, and if I do, that means I'm going to be taking Agatha Christie with me to Oxford. Oh, exciting. But yeah, I will be back with my thoughts on that as soon as I'm finished. All right, guys, bye.